Yeah. Yes, sir. I'm there. I'm there, sir. Okay. Okay. Om Sri Sai Ram. My humble pronouns to the lotus feet of our most beloved Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. And as we have been conducting the series of talks by the eminent and ardent devotees of Bhagwan, for the teaching community, this is the teachers series. And this is the third talk by our Sai sister, Dr. Akila Indurti Garu. And those we had attended the last two sessions, for them it's a refreshing. And for the new people, it's just to know about details more about our today's speaker, our Sai sister, Dr. Akila Indurti. I'm blessed to introduce our Sai sister, as I also have been associated with Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini under two wings, and one of them is directly connected with our Sai sister, Dr. Akila Indurti. I would like to say few details about our today's speaker. Dr. Akila Indurti is born in a very devotees family, and she has got a passion for English language from the beginning. After her post-graduation, she did her PhD in English language. She is MA, MPhil, B.Ed and PhD holder. And some brief details about her, Dr. Akila Indurti. Since 2012, she has been associated with Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini, which is directly under Sri Sathya Sai Central Trust. And she has been actively involved with the Mission English program. She is the national lead for that. And before that, she was already connected with Sathya Sai Seva Organization at various levels in various areas. Briefly, before that, she was very fortunate to receive her diploma in Sathya Sai education from the divine hands of our most beloved Bhagwan. She is very fortunate to receive directly from Bhagwan's divine hands. And she was a pre-Sevadal, and also for some time she was in Middle East countries, where she was a Balavikas Guru and educational coordinator. But she conducted several workshops on education, particularly education in human values and Sathya Sai education, the way in Middle East countries. And she was a coordinator of the EHP programs in Middle East, and conducted many workshops and motivated, inspired several people. And coming to the Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini, she has designed and developed the English courses for the very flagship program of Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini, that what we call is a PYF, that is called Phone Your Friend program. It's a wonderful program. Throughout India, many teachers are benefited, and they have improved their English language by going through this PYF program, and for which Dr. Akila Indurti has designed and developed the course material. And recently, Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini has introduced an online app program, that is sign-in app English language program. That is also English improvement program, and through which you need not attend any like a Phone Your Friend program. You need not have any contact, but on the app, you can do the lesson plans and submit them, for the mentor will approve them. And that has really taken a different dimension, and many people are across India, they have joined and they have downloaded the app, and they're doing the lesson plans and getting benefited and improving their English language. And for which also our Sai sister, Dr. Akila Indurti, has designed and developed the course, which is compatible with the sign-in app, which is currently used by many teachers, and even outside people who are appearing for the competitive exams also, they would like to improve their English, so they are using the app. That is a good part of it. And then coming to that, also before that, she was a resource person for UNICEF programs. SSI, they call it Sarva Shikshan Abhiyan, with the government of India and with the government of Karnataka. She has done a lot of programs, and she has been a resourceful and person for those programs. And currently, just to give some statistics of the Mission English program, I would like to say that how one individual has created and designed and developed the courses which has gone across India. Today we have TYF learners around 366, close to 400 in India. And the sign-in app, that is a through app, we have about 839, close to 900 people. And English immersion program, we have close to about 4,000 people. So that is the kind of reach our Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini, for which our sister Sai Akila Indurti is responsible. He has been blessed by Bhagwan to take the English program across India to the rural as well as urban areas. And today we are blessed to have the third talk by her. And today's topic is Inspiring Teacher 2. Earlier she did the number 1, and today she is going to talk on the topic Inspiring Teacher the 2. And I request our Sai sister, Dr. Akila Indurti, to take over the session and conduct or make the presentation. Jai Sai Ram. Thank you so much. Sai Ram, madam, you are there?
Om Shri Sai Ram.
Yeah,
offering my most loving pranams at the lotus feet of Bhagwan. With your permission, if I can share my screen, please. Just a second. Thank you very much for having me here. Thank you, Professor Mukundan sir. Thank you, Brother Vishnuvardhan, for those warm words of introduction. I'm really happy and excited to be talking to the teacher community of the Sri Sathya Sai Seva Organization. The beauty is that we can explore pedagogical topics that are related to education, the latest in educational pedagogy, in the framework of what Bhagwan has taught us. So in our previous session, we saw how Bhagwan's sessions, the discourses, taught us all about time management. It also catered to different kinds of listeners that are there in the audience. So these are all handy tips which we can very easily incorporate in our own classes. So going on in that particular series, this Inspiring Teacher Part 2 comes to us today with His grace. And the first thing that we have to understand is, if you have to be an inspiring teacher, you should be sufficiently inspired to take that inspiration to the class so that your students are motivated enough to listen, to question, to understand, and to apply whatever they have learned in the classes in their lives outside. Because the ultimate aim of education is not just to gain a degree. It's not that they go standard after standard, and then at the end of the 8th standard, there is an exam. At the end of the 10th standard, there is an exam. And soon after they give the exam, you ask them to come out and say, what did you learn? They said, why are you asking me again? Just now I went and I wrote everything that I'd learned. Now would you want me to recall all those? I forgot the minute I gave the paper to the examiner. So what is it that is left after all that they have learned? Practically nothing, because there is no real life application to whatever they have learned all these years. And this goes on year after year, and we spend about 19 to 20 years starting from our KG, pre-kindergarten nowadays. So starting from the pre-KG, when the child is about 2.5 years, to about 22, 21 years, the whole 19 or 20 years of education in our schools and colleges, once they come out and they move into the industry, what is it that they have taken with them? Absolutely nothing. Because whatever they have learned in the books, the textbooks have not taught them to become, first of all, good human beings. Another thing, to apply whatever they have learned in their real life situation. Is that knowledge, what they have studied in schools and colleges, useful for them in the offices? Most of the people that Just try this. Ask anybody who is going to work, whether whatever they have taught you in school and college, is it what you're doing in your offices, in your employment as well? They would say, no, nothing. That has got absolutely no bearing. It just got us into the job, that's all. But beyond that, there is nothing that education has helped us to become a better employee. So this is the sad state of education, sad state of affairs in the field of education today. So what is it that we are doing? Either through all these SSSO conducted trainings, or the workshops that we conduct in Sri Sathya Sai Vidya Vahini, or the content that we disseminate through our Vidya Vahini portal, the LMS. What is it that we are trying to do? We are trying to see how best we can make the students better, first of all, in their competencies, which means we are trying to see that they acquire knowledge, which will help them to develop a few skills, which will help them to go out into the world and apply those skills. Use that knowledge, put that knowledge to good use, and then become a better employee, a better employer. Many of them may go on to start their own ventures. So they have to become better employers. And the most important thing is to become better human beings, because that is what our master has been stressing throughout his lifetime. The end of education is character. And what is that character building education? Which is what Swami Vivekananda also said. It is man-making education which is important, not money-making education. The point that we keep stressing this again and again is, if you look in the world around you, it is the so-called educated people who actually transgress. Have you seen who jumps the signal in a busy road? It's not that those people have not gone to schools and not studied about it. The ones who jump the signal. Who are the ones who throw the garbage around the garbage bin, not into the litter can? The so-called educated people. Who are the ones who indulge in all kinds of malpractices? The educated people. So education, you see, is a very powerful double-edged sword. You can either become a good human being and use it to serve others and to become better people, better human being oneself, or you can use it, misuse it, and abuse it. So the reason why we are stressing this point again and again and want to build a core group of teachers who are well versed in all these inspirational things is because as teachers, we all know that you can inspire generations of students. And we'll see how you can do that. Year after year, batch after batch of students. This is something that I keep repeating because I want each teacher to understand. I think there are many teachers in this group. This particular program is geared for teachers. So there are about 30, 35 students or 40 students in your class, and you would be handling about 3 or 4 sections every year. Just imagine the number of students that come through you year after year. If you can touch their lives and if you can take them beyond the pages of the textbook, because you are not there to only give away what is there in the textbook. Today we have any number of notes, we have coaching classes, we have online medium, we have the Google Guru, which can just pull out all kinds of information regarding that particular subject or the concept or the topic which you are teaching. Much, much better than what each one of us can do. And now there is also the AI tool. You don't even have to type out. You just have to say, I want information on this particular topic, and you get a whole lot of information. So teachers, actually, children need not look to the teachers in order to gain knowledge. But the students look up to you to gain something more than knowledge in order to become better students, in order to become better citizens of the country. So what is it that we'll be looking at in this particular session? The first thing is, what are the core 21st century skills? What do we mean by competency-based education? Why is it necessary for us to build these competencies? And that leads us directly to how effective questioning becomes important in classrooms. As teachers, most of you may not encourage students to question because we are so used to only talking and we are not used to getting an interaction from the students. We feel if it is a silent class, then we have been successful as teachers. Or if students ask questions, it's only to disrupt the class. That's all a misconception that is there, which we have all grown up listening to. But it's no longer that way. So what are the kind of questions that we as teachers should encourage from the students? How do we build that skill of questioning? And for that, we have the Bloom's taxonomy, which most of you as teachers will be very, very familiar. So over the next 40 minutes, I would just take you through these 4, all within the framework of what Bhagwan has been telling us. So for us, our compendium, our encyclopedia, our Bible, our Gita, our reference, everything is only what Swami has been teaching us, because there is nothing. Maybe all these terms are new in pedagogy, but Swami has not given these names, but he has definitely taught us all these throughout, dotted amidst all the discourses that he has given. If you pick and choose, you will know how he has brought in all these concepts in his discourses, which is what we will try to explore today. What are the core 21st century skills? Most of you know that skills, we keep talking about it. The NEP talks about the core 21st century skills which have to be built in our students. We can divide this into 3. Let's say way of thinking, way of working, way of living. When you look at way of thinking, there are 2 skills that are very, very important. The skill of critical thinking, and the other one is creativity. How do you encourage creativity in your classrooms? Is there even a scope for creativity in the classroom? And what is the way of working? It is largely communication and collaboration. What is the way of living? Leadership and personal development. We want to build good citizens so that they would in turn become good leaders. And there is also a personality development in these students. Now, let's just look at all these with some of the examples from what Bhagwan has told us. In one of his discourses, Swami always interrupts heavy discourses with a reference. He gives a pause and he says, Oka chinna katha, Oka chinna udaharanam, and that example would become a short story. Now, in one story, I'm sure most of you might have read it, he spoke about a coaching institute which was actually preparing students to enter the army. So there was a new student who had just joined this coaching institute. And the teacher was trying to, the trainer was trying to bring the student up to speed along with the others. But he seemed to be a rather innocent and a very, not a very smart student, so he was a slow learner basically. And just a week after the student had joined, news came that there was going to be an inspection and that the person who's running the coaching institute was actually coming in to test the students to see whether they are doing well. See, the aim of this particular coaching institute was to help the army recruit these young men. So this, when this trainer heard that there was this person who was coming to, actually he was an army man who was also in charge of the institute. So he was coming to question these students. He was very sure that this boy with his very innocent and gullible looks would definitely invite trouble for himself. So he took extra care to prepare him. And this is what happens in most of the training institutes. So what happens, he says, this man usually, I know, when he comes here, he will ask only 3 questions. First thing he will say, how old are you? Because the army is very particular about the age. They cannot be underage or overage. So he will ask you, how old are you? Now you have to tell the answer. Say that you are 22 years old. Just say 22. Now the second question he will ask you is, how long have you been here? You just say 2 years. Don't say you joined only last week and all that. Just say 2 years. And the third question he will ask is, are you happy here, or do you want to go back to your home? Or do you like your home? Or are you feeling homesick? Just say you like both. You like to be here, you like to go to your home also, but you like both. Be very non-committal. So 3 answers. One is say, just give your age as 22, then say that you've been here for 2 years. And then for the third thing, you say both are good. That's all. So this boy got it. This answer was drilled into him. He got the answer. And just as expected, the next day, the inspector came, the person who was going to inspect the whole training institute came. And one look at this boy, he knew that this was a new recruit. So he just went and asked him. But that day, what happened, as ill luck would have it, he just changed the order of the questions. So he said, how long have you been here? Then he said, the first question was actually 22. The answer was 22. He had got that in his head. So he said 22 years. Then the second question the man asked him was, how old are you? And he said promptly, because he remembered. So he said 2 years. Now the man was so shocked. He says he's been here for 22 years and his age is only 2. So he says, are you mad or am I mad? Now he became very scared, this boy. So he started blurting out. He forgot what the answer, the full sentence was. So he simply said both. So Swami gave this example. You can go back to Okachina Katha, those of you who have not read it, and read about this. So what do you think was the problem with this particular case? What was it that was taught? How was it taught? What do you think was taught to the student? You can use the chat to give me, let's make it interactive. Since we are talking about the art of questioning and interaction and 21st century skills. What do you think was wrong with this pattern of teaching? Do you think there was anything wrong with this teaching, this method? Yeah? Can anyone venture a guess? Nobody?
By hearting way of
Very
reading
good.
society.
Very good. So this is the peril of rote learning. And this is what teachers have been doing all these years. It was rote learning that we have been promoting in the schools, not making children think. So this critical thinking as a very, very important component has been missing in our school curriculum. Because what we think that we have to complete the syllabus and we have to ensure that we have finished it within the time. And then what do? We tell them the questions that would come. We always give them an important questions. Don't we all give them important questions at the end of every lesson? We make them read that. Whether they understand or not, that we are not bothered. All that they have to do is get it into their head and then just give it out during the exam and then forget about it. So this is one particular example to tell you how rote learning is not going to help people when they have to actually address real life situations. Another story. Just listen to the story very carefully. There'll be one more question that comes your way. In the story, what all these have been told by Swami. So I'm only quoting him ad nauseum. I'm just taking verbatim whatever Swami has taught during his discourses and trying to connect it with our own needs, our own pedagogical concepts. So in this story, what Swami said was, there was this teacher and his disciples, a guru and his disciples. Now they were going from one place to another. They were traveling in a bullock cart. Now the entire group of students were all very, very, very devoted to what the teacher would tell them. They would listen to the teacher completely. They would not disobey. They were absolutely obedient students. It's such a delight to have such students in our class. So there were a bunch of students who were very, very obedient. So they started traveling from one place, from their place to another place. The master was taking them. So then what happened? The master felt very tired. So he said, and you know how the bullock cart goes. So he said, I'm feeling sleepy. So what you all do is keep watching. Since the roads are not very smooth, it can happen that some things might just roll out of the cart. So keep watching whether some things just roll out or not. And I'll just take some rest. I will close my eyes and take some rest. So the master went to sleep. And after some time, what happened? His water kamandala just fell off the cart. It just rolled down that road, the dusty path, and they kept going. So after some time, there was a jerk and the teacher got up, the master got up. Then he asked the disciples, did anything fall off or everything is okay? Anything happened? Then all of them said, no, your kamandala just fell down. Then he said, why didn't you stop the cart and take it? No, teacher, you just asked us only to watch. So we watched. You didn't ask us to pick it up. We obeyed you to the T. You told us to watch, so we watched. And then the master said, oh God, it's not watching alone. If anything falls down, you have to pick it up and put it back into the cart. That is what actually I meant. So anything falls down, just pick it up and put it back in the cart. Okay. Now we understood what you're saying. It's very clear. This instruction is very clear. Again, they went on the journey. They continued their journey. And the master closed his eyes and went to sleep. His rest was not, it was disrupted because of the jerk. So now he continued to go. And suddenly at one point, what happened? The bullock, it started passing down. So it stopped. And these boys, what they did, they just jumped out of the bullock cart. What did the master tell them? Anything falls down, pick it up and put it back. So they just picked up the dung and they threw it inside. In the process, what happened? One piece of dung fell on the master's face. He just woke up. He said, what is happening? He said, oh, master, you only said we have to pick up whatever is down. So we have picked it up and we have dropped it. Oh, he said, oh God, this is not what I meant. All right, now that you don't seem to understand what you have to do clearly, what I'll do is I'll just make a list and give it to you. The list of items that you have to actually pick up if it falls down. Did you understand? So what does he do? He writes whatever precious or important things are there, which valuable things are there in the cart, and he gives the papers and he says, if any of these things fall, only then you have to pick it up and put it back in the cart. Okay, now this is clear. This is now very, very clear because we have the list in our hand. So again, it went on for some time. Now what happened? There was a slope. The bullock had to go uphill on a slope. So when it went uphill, what happened? The master who was sleeping, he was not holding anything. In the jerk, he just slipped out and fell down. He rolled down and went into a stream. These people started continuing their journey because they looked at the list. In the list, the master's name was not there. So that means they don't have to pick up the master and put him back in the cart. Then he got up somehow from the stream and he said, hey, stop. He came running behind the cart. And then they stopped and they said, don't you have any sense? No, but you only told us whatever is there in this list only has to be put back into the cart. And your name was not there in the list. We are only obeying you. What is wrong? We are good students. We are only obeying you. So the master said, oh God, there's no point teaching these bunch of students at all. What do you think was wrong in this method of teaching?
Students are not understanding properly what teacher is telling in the class.
Exactly. Mainly because the teacher, yes, no logical thinking, no creativity, no reasoning. Any number of the skills that we say are the 21st century skills, these students did not exhibit. Who is at fault here?
Students' part.
Teacher only.
Yes, because the teacher had not taught them the importance of building these skills. So merely telling whatever is there in the books is not going to help the students understand their lessons at all. It's so important that the teacher also has to see whether the students have understood. It's a two-way communication. How can the communication happen? After teaching, what is it that teachers have to do?
Teachers have to discuss with the students, and there must be a good understanding between the teacher and the students.
Yes, very good. Recap, correct. Teacher has to recap, teacher has to question, teacher has to find out. And if there is a gap in whatever the students have not understood, that means the teaching has not been effective. So this is the reason why now we have moved from the traditional method of teaching to competency-based education. So what does competency-based education actually mean? It means that the student should be able to do. What is it that student should be able to do? Do something, whatever it is. Maybe at the end of, if you're just teaching them rules of grammar, it's not just rules of grammar. In your learning lesson plans, you can't just say, I'm teaching the rules of grammar. It's of no use. Just merely giving the rules of grammar is not going to help. It's like saying in a cookery recipe, I just bring all the ingredients and place it in front of a guest who comes. Is that enough? No. I will have to use those ingredients, prepare a dish, and only then serve that dish to the person who is sitting down to eat. Similarly, the teacher has to ensure that these lessons, whether it is the rules of grammar or the number concept or the concepts in science, the child understands, the students understand, and they should be able to do. If it's just rules of grammar, what is it that he should be able to do? They learn the rules of grammar so that they can write a letter or they can write an essay without any mistakes. So this is how you have to write your learning objective or your learning outcomes in your lesson plan. Always remember, if you're not doing it, if you're doing it, then fine. This only serves as a refresher. But if you're not doing it, any lesson plan, just mentioning what you're going to teach is of no use. Whatever you're going to teach, the child has to do something using that. So that is something that you have to bear in mind. That is called as the learning outcome. Now, what is it that the student needs to learn or know in order to reach that? That is what we call it as the resources, the learning resources. Now, these learning resources need not be only textbooks. Now, this is another important point that I keep making in every session, that it is not enough if you're only going to look at the textbook. The textbook is no longer our Bible. It's not like from page 6 or 7 it starts till page 90. You just flip through the pages and finish page after page and tell the students that we have completed this book. No. Swami always used to say, Pustakam Ninchi Mastakam. So what is going into the head, it gets totally diluted. From the book to the head, a large part of it gets diluted. So that's not what is important. You can make use of any kind of resources. It is need not be limited only to the textbooks. And what is a kind of transaction that should be the basis for this learning? This is what we call as activity-based pedagogy or experiential. Even this, there is nothing new about it. You remember that story about how a student went to a teacher and said that the student has to give at the end of his period of study some kind of a Guru Dakshina. So the Guru says, bring me the most useless thing in this world. And then he goes out. All of you know this story, isn't it? It has been repeated in many of your Balvika's lessons. So they all go out and they bring, one student goes out thinking that he can bring a dried leaf because he thinks that's the most useless thing. But when he goes out, what happens? He finds that there are people using it as a plate. Some of them are using, there was an ant which was trying to climb onto it. After some distance, he goes, there were some people who were gathering these dried leaves in order to set a fire so that they can keep themselves warm. And further distance he goes, and then he finds that people were gathering these dried leaves, saying that these dried leaves have medicinal values. So even a dry leaf was not actually without its use. So the student comes back and tells the teacher, I didn't find anything that is useless in this world. Everything seems to be having some use or the other. So which means that is an experiential lesson. But what do? We don't allow our children to have an experience. Even an experiment, we just tell them in the class, this is what an experiment is. How will children ever understand without undergoing or doing it? They will have to do that particular experiment. Only then they'll be able to understand the outcomes of that experiment. So for everything, it's important that there is a component which has got activity in it, so that they understand the real life or the daily relevance to that particular topic. So how will the teacher check the learning? And that is what we call it as assessment. Now, what is the difference between a learning objective and a learning outcome? Learning objective is for us as teachers. Why am I teaching this lesson? Is there a purpose, or is it because I've been asked to go to class 8, section B, so I just have to finish this portion and come back? That's all my objective is. Is that the objective? Or should I think, why am I teaching this lesson? What is it that my students have to understand after listening to this lesson? And what is a learning outcome? It is for the student. What will I learn after I complete studying this particular concept or this lesson? Not just the question answers that the teacher has given. There is a practical component to it. How will I use it? How will I use it in practical life? Where is it going to be used? If it's a decimal, the child has to understand where can I see a decimal? You tell them, go back and see where all decimals are used. Then they'll go back. They'll say, oh yeah, in the petrol bunk when my father was filling up petrol or my mother was filling up petrol, I saw the decimals there. So like this, you make them go out and see where they're using it. Then they will come back. And what about fraction? When they are measuring, there's a measuring cup and you say half a cup of rice, 1 cup of water. That's where you use fractions. So from the time a child enters a class till a child moves out of school and college, children have to see where they are going to use the lessons that they have learned in their classrooms. If they are not going to use it anywhere, then that particular lesson is an abject waste. What is the use of learning something which we are not going to use? So the learning outcome is actually the lesson or the concept or the topic which a child is going to learn. So that's the difference between an objective and an outcome. Just in case you have some confusion regarding this, this should give you a better clarity. An objective is from the point of view of a teacher, an outcome is from the point of view of a learner. So what should be our focus? The focus of teaching should be the achievement of learning outcomes by each learner, not the completion of the textbook, which is actually very, very sequential. One chapter leads to another. It is not that. The textbook can be only a tool because we just need to start a starting point to trigger our thoughts. But the learning outcomes can also be achieved by other forms. And that's why now we are saying, make use of YouTube videos, project work, films, workbooks, worksheets, storybooks, novels, nature trips, excursions, field trips, internet resources. So give them a lot of projects in your classes, even from class 1. Allow them to do a small project. Go out, plant a seed, see how the plant grows, note it down, come back and tell us how it grew. That would make a lot more difference than just talking about chlorophyll and sunlight and things like that. You just teach the concept, allow them to go do it and come back. So that is something that is very useful. And then how do you think you can understand whether children have understood what you have taught? It is only by questioning. Now, the reason why I took this particular, this topic for today is questioning is something that is so important. You're not going to just ask a question and make the entire class give the answer so that you think that they have read from the textbook. No. If you look at any of our scriptures, whether it is the Bhagavad Gita, whether it is the sutras, whether it is the Briguvali, whether it is the Bhagavata, anything, it would start with only a question. No teacher ever sat and gave a complete lecture and said, now, I have given you a text lesson. These are the questions. Now mark the answers. Nowhere. It has always been a dialogue. Students were encouraged to ask questions. There was no simple question, silly question. And that should start from class 1. You have to teach them how to ask effective questions. You don't give them questions. The best way to do it is you give them a small chunk of information and tell them what questions can you ask from this particular paragraph. Ask them to write the questions. That way, what will happen? They would have gone through that paragraph, they would have read it, and then they ask questions, and then you tell them, now you mark the answers for these questions from there. Ask them to formulate the question and then take the answers. So this way, what happens? They are able to reinforce whatever they have learned. You don't give them the questions. You don't make them ask. They have to understand from what they have learned. So the best way is to make them, that is effective questioning. And isn't that how the Bhagavad Gita is? Arjuna keeps interrupting Krishna and says, now how did this happen? Why would this happen? How does a Sthita Prajna sit? How does he walk? What can I do? I'm filled with love for my kinsman. How can I overcome this? He was very frank. He asked him questions, and Krishna patiently answered those questions. He never said, what nonsense, you're asking me such a stupid question. Why are you asking me such questions? This is what we as teachers do. You don't have any other work. You're going on asking questions. Just shut up and sit. You're interrupting my class. Don't teachers say this? Which is a very sad thing. And we who have been from the Sathya Sai fold, we are inspired teachers. Remember, you have to inspire your students. So if you are an inspiring teacher, you must encourage your students to ask good questions. How can you encourage them? By teaching them right from class 1 how to ask questions. And I gave you a tip to do it. And you keep asking about 35 to 50% of your instructional time, you keep asking questions. But are these actually effective? Children actually shudder. Teachers who come to the class and just start asking questions, they are in abject fear of that teacher. Why? Because they have not understood the concept. You just want to hold the class with, with fear as your weapon. That will never work. Nothing gets into the head. Children only understand, and then if they don't answer you, before, of course, there was caning. Now that has been, banned in schools. So maybe we punish them in other ways. Why would they not answer? Not because they're inattentive, but because your class was not interesting enough for them to understand what you are teaching. If the class is interesting, they would just sit without, batting their eyelid. If you're going to make it, why do they watch their mobile phones? Why do they watch, movie reels? What is it that interests them there? Why can't we make our classes also interesting like that? Can we not match up to that standard? Of course we can. It only requires a great deal of preparation. Not that usual kind of going to the class and teaching the same thing from page after page. So how can teachers ask better questions? You turn your focus on the important elements of a lesson. Just pick out the keywords. Ask them to find out. Make them tell what they know. Even before you teach, you pick out the keywords and tell them, what is it that you know about this? Then that sets them thinking. So they're not wasting their time. Give them 2 minutes to think. Have you heard about this? Have you seen this somewhere? Where have you seen it? Where have you heard about it? Have you felt this somewhere? Whichever concept it is, whether it is math, physics, chemistry, history, geography, whatever, civics, then they start thinking, do I know this? There would be somebody in the class who knows. There'll be some who may be somewhere closer to it, someone who does not know anything, but you are eliciting the answers from the class. So this results in better comprehension and makes them focus on what you are saying. And you should always be structure your questions in such a way that if the students do not even understand what the question is, how will they give correct answers? So it's important for you to be clear in your questioning. Your questions should be so clear, so focused, pinpointing whatever you want to know. Only then you will be able to get correct answers. And how much time can you wait? If it's going to be a very, lower order thinking, just wait time for about 3 seconds. But if it's a higher order thinking, then don't wait at all. You can just move on, give the answers. Then why should we ask questions? As teachers, why should students ask questions? And why should you also encourage them to ask questions? Because this actively involves the students in the lessons. And you want to make them increase their motivation. Have you seen a butterfly coming out from its cocoon? Then you can teach the life cycle of a butterfly easily. There are simulations available. There are now YouTube videos available. National Geographic comes out with those small, things. You can show it in your mobile to the students. They'd be interested to watch something as beautiful as this, nature in all its glory. So try to make use of anything that piques the interest of the students. And then you're also able to evaluate how prepared they are for the class, whether they know the pre-knowledge you're testing, post-knowledge you're testing. You also know whether they have been attentive and listened to what you have said. Was it interesting enough for them to attend to your whatever you have told them? And most importantly, not like those students about whom we saw in those earlier 2 examples. Here you want to develop their critical thinking skills. You also want to review the previous lessons. And then when you are telling them this, you get new insights. Did you not think about it this way? And then the child starts thinking, oh, you didn't think of this also? What, When you say that, the child's self-esteem goes. But the same way, same thing can be asked in a very polite way. Have you thought about it this way? So they develop insights. And then, of course, for you, whether your learning goals are met. And you're all the time trying to make them independent learners, not just those students who will learn whatever is given in the textbook, but they go beyond that. Their interest is aroused, and they're able to become, they are on the pathway to learn something newer and newer all by themselves, which they will definitely come back and share with you in your other classes, provided you give them the opportunity. And this is very important. After asking questions, what should you do as a teacher? Your response to the students' answers is very, very important. You should first make sure that your students have understood the question properly. So you have to frame questions in a very simple way where there is absolute clarity for the students to understand. And they should also ask for further clarification or explanation. If the student just says, yeah, no, I don't know. Why don't you know? Why? Is there a problem? You didn't understand? Then make another student say, and then you say, now did you understand? And then they may be able to understand. So this kind of a patient, dealing with the children makes them get interested in the subject that you are trying to say. And then you should validate a correct response. When whatever they say, just don't listen and go quietly. You have to validate, yes, you're right. Or no, this is not right. Let's try some other answer. Let us do it a little. Let's see if we can get a better answer. And teachers can also learn a lot from the responses. So vague or critical feedback like, no, that's not right. Try again. This is not going to help. A student doesn't understand. That's why he is not telling you. If you're saying, no, try again, how will he? So make another student, give a pause, make another student attempt. And then if he is correct, now you come back to the student and say, now do you understand? So acknowledging a correct response is very, very necessary and effective. And finally, you praise the student if he or she gives a correct answer. There should always be reward and motivation. That motivation for the students is so important. It will make them do better and better. Everybody should feel happy that they've participated. Nobody should feel that they are not part of your class. So now let's look at all this Bloom's taxonomy. It is so important for you to not just stay at the knowledge level. Knowledge level is what all these years our textbooks have been doing. When was the war fought? Where was it fought? Between whom was it fought? Why was it fought? That's of no use. How do those history lessons help us? In what way does it help us understand anything at all? Instead, you will have to see how you can apply that situation now. Have we learned any lesson from the World War? There was so much of destruction that had happened. The nuclear holocaust had happened. Even today, people are dying because of war. So have these wars taught anything to humanity? Why is it that we go on this pathway to destruction? Now, that is something that is higher order. You are trying to analyze not just the knowledge or the comprehension, but you're trying to apply that situation into a new situation now. Say, why is there a war today? Can we analyze that? So you need to move from the knowledge and comprehension to application and analysis. Analysis is when you separate the concepts and distinguish between facts and inferences. You try to analyze each one clearly. And then you're also able to synthesize, use that information in order to bring forth newer information. And then you should also be able to evaluate. For example, you give them a criteria, a 10-point criteria for a good product. And then you give them a product and say, is this product fulfilling this 10-point criteria? So then they're able to evaluate and make a judgment. So this way you are building the skill of the students. So lower cognitive questions, that is the knowledge and comprehension, this is closed information. Just recall, you're testing the memory recall of the students. That's not going to be of any use. It's the higher order questions, the application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, which are open-ended, which means each student can give his or her own answer and everything is a right answer. There's nothing called wrong because it is their own interpretation of what you have. That's where critical thinking skills come into play. Creativity comes into play. Their ability to communicate comes into play. So these are the benefits of asking the higher order thinking skill questions. What can be, when you are giving a question in your class, what should be your criteria for selecting which level you have to ask a question? It depends on your competency, because a teacher has to be very, very competent, very good. If we as teachers are not competent, then what happens? We will not be able to focus on the higher order skills. And it also is availability of the time. Sometimes even mere definitions are also important. So there it is going to be a mere knowledge and comprehension. But we don't stop with that. For example, you say define force. And then you ask another application-oriented question saying that where is it being used? And it also depends on the level of your students. You should do this right from class 1 so that they will be able to grow. You have built a batch of students who are able to understand what is being taught. So therefore, it should become this culture of the school in order to focus only on such higher order thinking skill, application-oriented, competency-based questions, which is what actually now CBSE is trying to do. It's saying that at least 50% of the questions are going to be competency-based. So all these coaching centers and tuition classes are going to go out of job because you don't know what kind of questions they can ask. And then the students come back and say this is out of syllabus. Naturally, because nobody can teach creativity. So prepare them. These sessions, however, it may be difficult for many of you to sit through them because you may think it is a very heavy session that's going on. But the importance of these sessions is that it's only to build. We are foreseeing what is going to happen in schools, and we are trying to build those competencies in the teachers. So you should also know the purpose of the teaching. Only then you will be able to select good questions. And in this, what I've done is I've just compiled a few of the questions that can come. So in case you are going to have this recording, this might be useful for you when you are creating questions. See, if it's going to be a knowledge-based questions, how should the stem be? What should be the verbs that you should use? What happened after, how many, who was it? And the activities that you can give are like make a chart, make a list, make a timeline, write a list of any of the pieces of information, or list all the points that you have read about this character in the story, which is true or false. These are the kind of questions that you will be using. This will be like a ready reckoner if you keep this with you. You can prepare questions based on your topics in this fashion. Similarly for comprehension. Comprehension is a little bit more. You're asking them to comprehend and then write. So can you write in your own words? Can you write a brief outline? This is how your question stem should be. Can you distinguish between? Can you provide an example? Can you provide a definition? So what are the activities you can do to see, make a cartoon strip showing the sequence of events? If it's going to be a food chain or a life cycle of of a bird or an animal, which insect, then you can say make a cartoon strip just for you to see whether they understand what it is. Retell the story in your own words. So write a summary. So these are the different kinds of activities that are coming under the comprehension level of Bloom's taxonomy. And then you have application-oriented questions. Do you know another instance? They have read one, so you're asking them to use that and apply that and recall something else that they know. Could this have happened in a better way? So these are the kind of questions that you can write. And the activities that you can do for this application-oriented in order to build the application level of questioning in your students are given here. Then similarly for analysis, design a questionnaire to gather information, write a commercial, an advertisement to sell a new product. Imagine you're developing a product. How will you write an advertisement? So many things, so many skills come here. They'll have to think about the product, what are its good things, so many things for imagination. And believe me, students will just adore this kind of a class. And there's so much of creativity that happens that you yourself will be left wondering whether your students have such potential. Every student, remember one thing, it is never that so many years you've been teaching, let's say, have all the first benchers or the first ranked students alone become successful in the world today? You might meet them 10 years, 15 years. Today, we have the possibility of getting connected with them either on LinkedIn or any other social media. And you wonder, they are so successful. You say, oh, this boy was so quiet in the class. This girl was such a dud. I thought she would fail in most of the subjects. Today, she's become such a big entrepreneur. So you wonder, that means there is this, fire within them to do something, but the school or the college never actually helped them tap that potential. But that is where we as teachers should not fail the students. Every child, it is not that only those who got first rank have become successful in the world, and all those who got 60% and 70% are today, struggling. It is never like that. I am not in any way trying to belittle the benefit of education. In fact, education is what has made us all what we are today. But it is not that education that we in the traditional form know it. That is the rote learning method or the traditional way of teaching. When we build competencies in children, they would be able to shine in any way that they can. So it is only for that we make use of these sessions, so that in a little light-hearted way, we are also giving you, certain methods by which it can help you in your own classes. And finally, here is a synthesis where you will say you can invent a machine to do a specific task. Nowadays, if you look at that Atal Tinkering Lab that has come up, how many children, especially from small towns, come out with so many beautiful inventions? It is something that is mind-boggling. And then they have an exhibition and they exhibit all these things. Some of them, if they're very good, they even get patented. How do they do it? Because the schools have encouraged. How did the school produce one Gukesh or one Pragyananda? Because that school decided that they would only concentrate on sports. And those children are shining today. So it is not that schools have to focus only on the traditional 100%, looking at the textbooks and seeing that the children study and you have any number of tests. You don't give them any time for either their PE class or their library, or don't make them breathe. If it's going to be a 10th or a 12th, it's a nightmare for the teachers and the students and the parents. And a jolly good time for the coaching institutes. So that is not the kind of education that we want to promote. At least we in the Sai organization should ensure that we don't promote that kind of or subscribe to that kind of education. So these are some of the things that I wanted to take you through in this particular through this particular session. And I've listed all this, but I'm not reading them out. It's more for your reference. So if there is anything that you have, any doubt or any feedback regarding this, feel free to tell me and we can take the questions. So thank you very much for this wonderful session. I quite enjoyed preparing for it and thinking how, to make it interesting, because this is quite a difficult session, that too at the end of the day towards the evening. And I hope you enjoyed listening to it. In case you have any doubt, kindly let me know.
Saira ma'am.
Yeah, Saira.
I'm Mala from Tiruvachur Samachir.
Yes.
Yeah, such a beautiful session I have seen. Last time I missed by I watched in YouTube. But here I have a doubt regarding this teaching you taught. You told that content-wise concept, everything I tried. But when I faced the question, I had a challenge where I went wrong. It was the third standard question. Book back exercise, everything within the lesson. Do you know each and every corner? I taught them everything. And I gave them instruction also matching. It may come in choose or you may be ready to answer in all the way I taught them. But in the question, choose the best answer, 2 options were given. That part I missed. That part alone, they have to pick out the answer and fill it up. But that part came as a fill in the blanks. That they found very hard, where I went wrong. Even though we have tried so much, the way of questioning is challenging
I
for
understand.
me.
I'll answer. I completely
Yeah.
understand what you're saying. Let me try and answer. See, the reason for this kind of a challenge is that we are trying these new things only now, isn't it? We are only trying this. It is not that ever since the child came into the KG, where we have been initiating the child into this kind of a questioning method. It has been traditional, and suddenly now in the class 3, we are introducing something which is little bit different from what the child has been exposed to all these years. So initially, these doubts may be there. Sometimes, and most of the competitive exams, starting from whether it is an entrance exam or whatever it is, please believe me, they'll all be only computer-based multiple choice questions. They give them 100 questions and it is going to be multiple choice, and we think it's very simple, A, B, C, D. They just have to tick, 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 tick. So there are 2 challenges. One is the time management itself in these questions, because they're all timed. The student has to complete that questions. And the next challenge is that the answers themselves seem to be so tricky that every choice seems to fit into that particular.
It appears to be safe.
Yes, but the children get confused and they're not able to do it. The reason is we have not exposed them to this kind of challenging questions. So don't be disheartened. It is only the first time that you have tried and you felt that the children are not up to the mark. So what you need to do is go back, rework, keep doing it again and again. Keep selecting. Now what you do, go back to your lessons, pick out those questions, pick out the paragraph on which the questions are based, ask them in a different way with many choices. Keep giving that exercise again and again. Believe me, it will take some time initially, but within a year, these children will be so good at the concept that they will be able to just stick to the right answer. If we do it, don't worry, don't get disheartened. See, it is like getting a new recipe. Now, I see a new recipe on YouTube and I find the way they do it is so simple and so easy. So I go back and do it, but it doesn't come the way these master chefs are doing it. But I don't give it up immediately, isn't it? What do we do? Keep doing it again and again until we find our own way of doing it and perfecting the whole thing. And then we say, oh, now I am perfect. Maybe I may not call it the same thing, but I have made a dish that is closer to what I saw. And I really like what I have made. Yes, or do you agree with?
Yes.
It is only practice. It is practice which makes us perfect, actually. So don't get disheartened. As a teacher, please keep doing it and don't give up also. This is the way of the future. It's only going to be computer based. It's only going to, descriptive answers are very, very few. It's only going to be computer based. And these are the competencies that we have to develop in the child, doing it very, very quickly. Think whether this answer lends itself to this question or another choice is better. Let them think within that particular time. So keep giving
Yes.
them practice worksheets. And I'm sure within a year, you will come back and tell us it's really worked very, very well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anybody else? I thought I quite saw a few more hands.
Sairam, your questions, please.
Saira ma'am, I am
Sairam.
Padmaja from Ongol ma'am.
Yes, Sairam Padmaja Garu, tell me.
This is very wonderful session, ma'am. I followed your instructions and instructions what you given in previous classes. I started questioning my students according to their appropriate ages, ma'am.
Huh.
So it is very good, ma'am. My students are answering.
Super.
From first class, I am putting questions
Wonderful.
according to their
Age.
syllabus and age. So they are following my lessons very good, and they are ready to answer. And some students, those who are not able to tell in English, they are able to tell in Telugu also.
Superb, no
But I am
problem.
encouraging. I am encouraging them how to tell. So I want the answer in their mother tongue also, because in our school students, all students are not able to tell in English.
That's
But I am
perfectly all
encouraging.
right. Please don't even hesitate. If the
Yes,
idea
yes,
is that children have to answer. First of all, they should
yes,
open up and answer. Second
yes,
is they should be able to even communicate. So don't
yes,
bother if it is going to be in Telugu. Don't bother if the answer is initially wrong. Don't shout, don't scold, don't get
yes,
angry.
ma'am.
Be patient, make them understand what the right, make
Ma'am,
another
yes,
child
ma'am.
answer, and just see, you just made a beginning in class 1. By the time they come to class 10, these children will simply outshine other children who are just going through rote learning method.
Yes, ma'am. If they tell wrong also, I just laugh and I friendly, I'll tell the answer and I encourage them.
Very good.
I'll put questions, opposite questions, meaning is everything. So this is very wonderful session, ma'am, helping us to improve our teachings. Sairam, ma'am.
Thank you, Sairam. So if we don't have any further questions, I would like to thank you all for your patient listening, and thank you, Professor, for having me over here. I really enjoy doing these sessions with these teachers, and I hope that you will be able to use them in your classes and become very, very good teachers, efficient teachers. Never mind whichever language you teach, whatever subject you teach, you must be able to better yourselves, excel yourselves as very good teachers, and make Swami proud. That is the use of all these teachers, and wishing you all a great year ahead. Thank you very much. Thanks to Swami dedicating it to him at his lotus feet. Thank you so much, Sairam.
Brother Vishnuvardhan. And once again, we request all the teachers to come forward with their questions, because these relevant questions and answers are going to hundreds of teachers through the video, recorded video. So don't hesitate to ask questions. You are helping other teachers also in this process. Sairam sister, Dr. Akila, once again, we are so happy. And really, we know now where we are and where we should be. That is the greatest blessing from Swami, because Swami has shown the correct path for all those teachers who are participating. And we pray to Bhagwan to bless you more and more, to guide more and more teachers. And all the teachers participated in this session. We express our deep gratitude to you. And please share your thoughts in the group, so that those teachers who are not attending, those who are not present today, they will have an idea of how important these sessions are. These are really the prasadams given by Bhagavan, and we should enjoy the prasada fully. Thank you all. Thank you all, and wish you all a very, as Sister Akila just gave, wish you all a very happy, prosperous New Year. And once Swami wrote a New Year message to Professor Kasturi, and it was this: bless that you will be always in the service of Sarveshwara. There can be no great blessing, and we pray to Bhagavan to bless all of you and request you to put your comments in the group so that other teachers also will be benefited and motivated to attend these sessions, because they don't know how important these sessions are. Thank you, Sister Akila, and thank all the teachers. Sai Teja, we will conclude with Shanti Mantra. Sai Ram.
Saram Sai. Saram. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Jai Bolo Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba Ji ki Jai.
Hey, Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram to all.